Amazing. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal Raw Reaction Show. Joining you live here in Madrid after Arsenal's 5-1 aggregate victory over Real Madrid. What an amazing victory for Arsenal over the last week. Absolutely incredible display, incredible performance in the first leg. Pretty much everything really we could have hoped for in the second leg, barring a couple of chaotic moments that added to the drama of the night and the evening as well. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much as always for tuning in and joining me. Just a heads up, of course, I don't have my usual audio set up with me, so the audio is going to sound slightly different. I hope you can still hear and see me as clearly as feasibly possible, hoping that the Wi-Fi is holding and this is all coming through as best as feasibly possible. But this is what I'm working with here in Madrid, so I can only apologise for that. I have to apologise as well that there was no show yesterday morning. No, I wasn't indisposed or unable to do the show because of any issues on our Friday or Saturday nights. No, I think it's the weekend. I don't know what was going on Tuesday night, but I did have a meeting pop up very early on Wednesday morning, the day of the game, that was too important to miss, and I couldn't then pre-record something in time. So sorry about that. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Really appreciate you all being here. Let's say good morning to some people in the chat box, shall we? Clincy, Rowan, Paul, Carlton, Robbie, Paul, Runs with Cows. We've got Kiki. We've got Evan in the chat as well. We've got Barry and Kevin and Lee, Eamon and Stephen and Oliver. Good morning to you all. Thank you to so many of you tuning in. It's very much appreciated. I will say, I don't know if the stream is working properly because for some reason, even though I am live, it's not saying that it's gone live on YouTube, although it may just have. So I don't know. But let me know in the chat box if things are working because StreamYard's not giving me any information whatsoever. And in fact, StreamYard for some reason is not showing me any new comments. I may have to use the YouTube chat box on the actual YouTube app to see what your comments are because for some reason I can't see them on StreamYard. So maybe StreamYard's a Real Madrid fan. Maybe that's what it is. But I can see you in the chat box now. So many of you. Kirill, Runs of Cows, Andy offered, Zach, Courts, Daryl, Paul, George, Robert, Sir Nicholas, Maximius, Amaka. I can see you all there. I just can't sadly highlight your comments at the moment, which sucks. Although maybe it's coming through now. It just seems to be a little bit delayed on StreamYard's end. But thank you so much for tuning in. There's no slideshow. I have not been able to put that together this morning. I woke up at about half eight. Obviously, Spanish time, an hour ahead of those of you in the UK. But I was like, I can't not do a show this morning. I absolutely have to. And don't worry, you'll still be getting one tomorrow and the next day and the next day and so on and so forth. It's just been an absolute whirlwind 48 hours in Madrid, and all of the nerves, all of the anxiousness, all of the build-up. It kind of did, in a way, kind of come to a bit of a head because yesterday, as we kind of waiting for the kickoff, the longer the day kind of went on and the closer to kickoff that we kind of got, the nerves, I think, certainly were on the rise. And I talked to James Nicholas after the game yesterday, and I said, do you remember kind of the feeling that there was before the first leg against PSV in Eindhoven? We weren't in particularly great form. We didn't really know where the goals were coming from. And yet when obviously it happened and we put 7 past PSV, ultimately all those nerves kind of dissipated very quickly. And it was kind of like, well, why were we so worried? What were we so worried about? And I guess the feeling is kind of a little bit similar at full time yesterday. What were we so worried about? This team is excellent. These players are brilliant, and they managed to execute an absolutely astonishing victory yesterday. I'm so glad that they won the actual game, like the actual game itself. I'm so pleased that they managed to win the game as well as the tie. Amazing to think that across the last 16 and the quarterfinals, Arsenal have scored 14 goals in 4 games. 14 goals against a very good PSV side, and of course Real Madrid on top of that as well. But let's go through the game and let's talk about some of the action, some of the moments, some of the situations, of course, that led to Arsenal's victory yesterday. The game begins, and it begins exactly how I thought it was going to begin. Real Madrid very intense, very offensive, very, very much knowing that they need to try and find themselves an early goal. And they got that early goal through Kylian Mbappe, of course, only to see that ruled out for offside. And I tell you what, when that went in and even the flag went up quite quickly, there was a real kind of pause in my mind of, oh no. Oh no, this is gonna go horrendously. But when that flag went up, that was kind of the first sign of the evening of, oh, this things might just start to be falling Arsenal's way. And that carried on, of course, because the penalty that Arsenal were awarded for the foul on Mika Marino by Asensio in the box, I think it was. Obviously, that's a penalty kick, but you can't do that from corners. Absolutely ridiculous to even think that that would be anything other than a penalty. But you just don't ever really see those kind of moments. You don't really see those situations much. And the fact that it took as long as it did to award the penalty, and you know what the most frustrating thing kind of about the game in itself, from my perspective only, and those in the press box, is that despite £1.5 billion being spent on what is, without a doubt, one of the most extraordinary stadiums I've ever been sitting in presence of, whatever. No screens in the press box, couldn't see any replays. So I'm doing a live blog. Harry's sitting next to me doing commentary, trying to do all of that without any benefit of replays or commentary or anything. It was really difficult to kind of understand and to describe the game when you yourself don't know. Behind us is kind of like the Madrid press, and they've got their own rooms with TVs in. So on the reflectiveness of the window, you can kind of see a television screen. So everyone's kind of turning around and looking. I assume maybe TVs is something they will eventually install in the Bernabeu, but obviously they have that big ring around the top of the stadium. And maybe they feel that, with that, you don't need it. But the press need that extra bit of replay just to know and describe what's going on and to have some idea of what's happening. But I genuinely didn't know which way the penalties was going to be given, because there was, like, I think, an attack by Arsenal before the Marino moment. Sorry, an attack by Real Madrid, that there was a moment in the box as well. So when the referee went to the screen, I had absolutely no idea if it was going to be a penalty for Arsenal or a penalty for Real Madrid. And when he pointed to the spot for Arsenal, I was genuinely in a state of disbelief. And then, of course, Saka steps up to take the penalty, and all I can say is thank goodness we won, and secondly, thank goodness he scored, because had Arsenal have gone out of this game and he'd not been involved in any goals, I dread to think what the discourse would have been surrounding Bukayo Saka following that penalty. It was a real bad moment, and it's such a good thing that he scored later on in that game, because had he have not scored later on in that game, I really, obviously that we'd gone out more so, that would have been a real stain, I think, on what's widely considered to be one of the best young players, if not just one of the best players in the world. So very happy that things changed. But in that moment, I was like, we do not need to give Real Madrid any extra incentive, any extra energy, any extra oomph. We just need to do our job. And the penalty was, yeah, very, 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 very frustrating. Only, of course, then for Real Madrid to be given a penalty in around the 30th or so minute, I think it was. I lost track of time in the first half. It was such a strange game. And of course, again, we don't have replays here. It seemed exceptionally, it seemed exceptionally hard. Now, actually, as I'm speaking, because got a penalty in here, and right he's in contact with Mbappe. The ball's gone. He's nowhere near Rice, and as the ball comes in, Mbappe just kind of falls to the ground and buys the penalty off the referee. It's never a penalty. Like, the only people calling the Real Madrid penalty a penalty are A, Real Madrid supporters, and B, people who just hate Arsenal. There is no way in the world I ever want to see a penalty given for that. I never, ever, ever want to see a penalty given for that. So thank goodness. Arsenal make it to half time, which before the game, it was a case of if Arsenal get through the first 20 minutes, if Arsenal get through the first 30 minutes, if we can make it to half time, still nil-nil, amazing. We're in a brilliant, brilliant position. And getting to that point, I turned to Charles, who, by the way, I have to say a massive, massive apology to. I've had so many people tweeting me saying, "You need to apologise to Charles. He was there and we won. It's fine." I gave him his programme for the first leg, so he's fine. We're sweet. It's all good. The war is probably it might be over. Who knows? But yes, half time was a sense of frustration. I remember going up to one of the guys who works at the club and just saying, I think I was at first I was like, "What is Saka doing? Like, what is he doing?" And then, of course, just kind of this sense of just get through each 10-minute block, just keep getting through each block and each block and each block. And the second half, of course, starts, and you're thinking, well, Madrid are going to be given this unbelievable kind of half-time team talk by Ancelotti. But they never really took off. Madrid never really kind of got going at all in the second period. At halftime, they hadn't had a shot on target in all of the first half, and I think that in some ways calmed a lot of the nerves. And as the minutes kind of tracked on, and Arsenal continued to have this, solid effort to be able to counter, to escape well, to be threatening. Arsenal are always threatening at points. They always looked dangerous, and I think Real Madrid are very aware of how dangerous Arsenal could be on the counter. And obviously, we had chances both in the first and the second half before we actually scored the first goal. There was moments of frustration for me. I thought Odegaard was pretty poor in the first half. I thought that we found ourselves not making the right decisions enough times in key moments. But everything else was really, really good. And when we get to the point where we do score, the goal is just artistry. It's just absolute artistry because the work that's done by, and much improved second half performance by Odegaard. He finds Declan Rice. The ball makes its way to Mikel Merino, who will come on to some individual displays a little bit later on, but his performance was just great. And then, of course, the pass through to Bukayo Saka, who, and you're thinking about kind of that moment, you're thinking about what he had to deal with from the penalty miss to make that move, to make that finish. I thought he was going to try and go around Courtois. I mean, certainly that's what I would have been sitting there probably trying to do. I was sitting there saying I know anything about football, but I thought he was going to try and go around the goalkeeper. But that confidence, that ability to just caress the ball over Courtois so gloriously was a sight to behold. Amazing stuff there. Brilliant to see. And ultimately left Arsenal in a dream position, in an absolute dream position. For about 30 seconds, I didn't see the incident in real time. I was still frantically typing, looking at my computer screen, writing down the description of the goal, putting it into the press conference blog, putting it into the matchday blog, sorting out my player ratings piece for full time. And I look up, and the ball's hitting the back of the Arsenal net. And I'm thinking, what on earth is happening? We've just had the highest of high moments. And Saliba does something completely and utterly uncharacteristic of his nature, where he is entirely unaware of his surroundings. He has got to be one of the most spatially outstanding footballers in a defensive line I've ever witnessed. His consciousness of space, where the other players are around him, how he can turn a player away from a player. And ultimately, he loses sight of where Vinny Jr. is, loses the ball, and has a bit of a nightmare, and Arsenal concede. And then you're thinking, wow, we've just gone from the highest of highs to just gifting Real Madrid absolute momentum for these final 25 minutes or so of the game, however long was going to be remaining. I think he scored in the 67th minute. And you're just thinking, right, Arsenal now just need to hold on. This is going to be an onslaught from Real Madrid. This is just going to be shot after shot, cross after cross. And it was certainly the latter. Real Madrid put a lot of crosses into the Arsenal box, constantly trying to pepper the Arsenal box, and we just dealt with it so well. Clearance after clearance, block after block, tackle after tackle. We just kept going and going and going. Saka comes off, Trossard comes on, works extremely hard, and we just repelled every single attempt by Real Madrid to find their way into Arsenal's box, and they never really threatened. They never really had too much of an opportunity where I thought we're in danger here. Across the whole game, they had 3 shots on target. And, Arsenal in the league this season have really struggled, I think, to try and obviously there's been outside factors. And Arteta mentioned again in the post-match press conference the injuries that we've had to deal with. And I think he's fair to do that because the injuries we are facing are ridiculous. Um, but if there's one kind of thing that you look at this Arsenal team and go, they're quite good, it's, I think, the knockout side of things across 2 legs in particular. And I know that Arsenal were beaten in the 2-legged quarter-final, or semi-final, sorry, the League Cup, obviously after getting to the League Cup semi-final, and there were big reasons and the big chances we missed in the first leg of that game at the Emirates, of course, I think play a huge role there. But the way that we set up, the way that we deal with games makes us a very good Champions League team because the way in which we can claim a victory and claim a lead and hold on to it and limit the opponent to so few chances, it really does put us back into quite a strong position for these types of games. And you're thinking, at this point, the Arsenal fans, the game's ebbing towards its close and its finale, and you're thinking, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could just win this game as well? Because we deserve to win the game, without a doubt. We were leading. The only goal that they scored was a gift. It was the only moment where they really looked like scoring. And you're just thinking, wouldn't it be great if we could just claim this game in itself, in its separate nature? And of course, Real Madrid are overcommitting players. They're desperate to try and score, and the ball breaks. And Mikel Merino just spots the run of Martinelli. And I don't know about you, but even though there was a goalkeeper in there, I couldn't help but think back to that Aston Villa game where we were also wearing a black kit, the greatest kit, in my opinion, Arsenal have ever had. Um, and Martinelli sprints through and scores into an open goal. This time, he has got a goalkeeper in front of him. This time, he's got a defender much closer to him. And he runs away from, I think, Fran Garcia, takes the ball into the right position, and just glides it, finesses it. He held the right bumper of his Xbox controller, just casually put the ball past one of the world's best goalkeepers after sprinting more than half the field. It was a classic Martinelli goal. And it was a goal that sent the Arsenal fans and me and others into utter ecstasy. Amazing night. One of the most one of the most amazing nights of my career. One of the most amazing nights as an Arsenal fan. One of the most amazing nights of my life. Absolutely amazing. And it puts Arsenal now into a semi-final of a competition where you're looking at the teams in it and you're thinking, Arsenal can beat any of these teams. Arsenal could beat any of these sides. Realistically, Arsenal can beat anybody that they have left. Equally, they can be beaten by any of the teams that remain. It's a very competitive semi-final four where for me, there is no standout favourite. All those teams I think can be got at. You look at how Dortmund managed to get at Barcelona in the second leg, Aston Villa scoring 4 against PSG, and Inter Milan are a very good side and have beaten a very good Bayern team, but in themselves have their own flaws. And Arsenal are 2 wins, hopefully 3 wins, but Arsenal are 2 wins away from winning the Champions League now. It's exciting. I remember doing these shows back, I think, in December, January. The gap to Liverpool was quite big. People saying the season's over, the season's done. And you may remember I had a message for those people. I said, if you're done with this season, if it's over for you, and your energy is to jump into chat boxes and comment sections saying Arsenal's season is over and you're done with it, then come back next season. I wonder if they've come back a little early. That's what I'm wondering. We're going to go to part two. We're going to talk about some individual performances from the game, the grander context of this win, and more right after this. Okay, this is part two of the show. We're going to be tackling some of your questions in the chat box. So if you've indeed got any questions that you'd like to ask, now is the time to put them in. We're also going to be talking about some individual performances from the game. I want to kick things off with Declan Rice, who there are three players who got 9 out of 10 displays from me. I don't really give number 10s, rarely ever do. I could have given a 10 to Declan Rice, but I gave 9s to three players. Those three players were Declan Rice, Miko Marino. Oh, four. Sorry, I gave four. I think I gave four. Let me have a quick check. I think I gave 4 9s. I'm doubting myself now. One. It was 9. 1, 2, 3, 4. Declan Rice, who I think was just outstanding, outstanding, and one player of the match again from UEFA. I would have given it to someone else. I would have given it to someone else, and I'll show you that in a second. But Declan Rice is everywhere, tackling, running, defending, progressing, just being a leader, an absolute energetic force of nature in the middle of the park. £100 million performances across those two legs, utterly perfect. And he is going to have a huge role to play in the semi-final now for a big reason, which we'll come on to. For me, Jakub Kiwior. Jakub Kiwior. Oh, how we worried. How we worried. How we worried about what we were dealing with. How we worried about what we faced. How we worried about what was going down in this game and in the games without Gabriel, who, by the way, takes my picture of the weekend because I don't know if you've seen the I don't know if you've seen the video of Gabriel celebrating, but if you haven't yet, you absolutely should try and seek it out. But I really, really, really enjoyed that display. I love the fact that he kind of outshone Saliba in the end. Saliba was excellent in the first half. Obviously, he made a mistake in the second half and had a couple of moments again as well as an uncomposed clearance. Kiwior just dealt with everything that was put to him. He dealt with absolutely everything. He was calm. He was strong. He was adamant of winning every duel that he got involved with. And he had an 18-year-old next to him who was, again, absolutely fantastic. And the other player I gave a 9 to was David Raya, who I don't think people are really talking about in this game. And I don't really know why. Because David Raya was so good. He's a goalkeeper that had lost his place to Unai Simon in the Spanish national team. Every cross that came near him, his. Any corner that came near him, punched. Distribution, excellent. Composed at the back. That was a top performance from a goalkeeper. Absolutely top performance. And I can't believe I've finished talking about Declan Rice without talking about his tackle on Bellingham, by the way. That's a mismanagement of justice. So there is me mentioning that tackle by Rice on Bellingham in the box. Glorious. What a moment. Especially between kind of two England midfield rivals, if you like. But yeah, going back, David Raya, so good. So good. And I saw people saying that he shouldn't have been given the ball by Raya. That's rubbish because that's what the expectation is at Arsenal. It's not on who the keeper's playing the ball to in that moment because it's on the defenders to be aware of their space. Saliba should know who's around him. He should be checking. That's just a basic expectation. And I don't blame Raya for that at all. I do not blame Raya for the goal whatsoever. It has to be on Saliba for me. It's nothing to do with Raya. The expectation in those moments is you can take on players, you can pass the ball, you know where your teammates are. Your teammates are in space. You can go back to the keeper if you need to. For me, it's not about Raya the goal, but that's just my opinion. And the other player who got a 9 was Miko Marino. This guy just keeps stunning me every single game I watch him. Uh, I don't know if he's been having words with Clive Palmer about certain things. Maybe he has, but he's doing more than a great job now. He's doing more than a great job at centre forward. 2 assists on the night, 2 perfect passes, brilliant work rate and ethic and everything. He had it all. He produced one of the best centre forward performances away from home in a European game at one of the absolute biggest clubs in the world you will ever see, because he just worked so hard, so incredibly hard. The two frustrations I've got are on Thomas Partey, who, by the way, performance-wise, just on the football side of things, Thomas Partey was excellent in the game, and the reason I'm so frustrated is because he had a moment of just idiocy, really. Like, I can't really put it anything other than that. It's just so silly. Such a silly moment from Thomas Partey. Such an impulsive moment of, I don't know. He just saw red, didn't he? And just pushes the player when he doesn't need to. Yes, he's being antagonized. Yes, he's being grappled. But you're on a yellow card. You're on a yellow card. You know how vital you are. If you watch the first game we had against PSG this season, Partey was integral to that game. Partey was a massive reason why Arsenal beat PSG earlier in the season. And now we miss Partey for the first leg. I always thought it was near impossible that we would go through this game unscathed. And I always thought we would lose at least one of our players. But for me, it was always the two midfielders. I thought we can't afford to lose them. We can't afford to lose Rice or Partey. And the only reason I want to see a player missing a game through suspension was because of a bad tackle or a cynical foul stopping a counter attack. I don't know how Jurriën Timber escaped. The only reason Jurriën Timber didn't get a 9 for me in the game was the amount of fouls that he made. He was excellent, Timber. He was startlingly good, as always, and he's quickly becoming my shoe-in for the player of the season, to be honest, Jurriën Timber. But he was very lucky to avoid a yellow card throughout the game. I think we were quite fortunate with the referee that he didn't get a booking in the first half and in the second half. He could have been booked in either moment, really. But I'm just so annoyed at Partey. I can't help but be really irritated that happened, because the team has put in this absolutely monumental effort, getting yourselves to a semi-final of a Champions League. And the only reason that we're going to lose, who has been across the season our best midfielder, is because of a moment of stupidity. And that's what it is. It's so gutting. It's so gutting that we won't have him. And I tell you what, he's such an important player for us that moment could cost Arsenal a Champions League semi-final tie. That moment of madness could cost Arsenal the tie, because we don't have Jorginho. I don't think we're going to have Jorginho, because the injury that he suffered stopped him from finishing the game in the weekend. He's unable to come out here. Arteta's kind of comments about Jorginho were not encouraging in the slightest. And when you're without such a key player who's obviously a great depth option, I'm not sure Jorginho would have been great against PSG anyway, because I think that the speed that PSG counter and attack on is very hard to deal with for a player like Jorginho. But Partey would have been absolutely critical for that. And so losing Partey for that first leg of the semi-final is going to be really, really difficult to deal with. And that's really annoying. Mark says, Tom, do you have an agenda? Dear me, Mark. Honestly, I'd startle at things sometimes that you say, Mark. It really does startle me. Byron says, got to understand Partey's frustration, though. Rudiger was fouling and hurting players. I get it. I get it. I can empathise with the idea of being annoyed. But you've got a job to do. You're on a yellow card. You're a professional footballer. You cannot do what you've done in that moment. It's so costly. It's so costly to the team. And it really did. It's a brilliant, brilliant night, and it would take a massive, massive thing to undermine anyway. But that moment really did bug me. Really, really bugged me. I can deal with a yellow card if you're stopping a counter attack cynically, but to do that yourself and to cost us that way is so irritating. Right, let's get into the chat box some more and tackle some more of your comments. Tony says, "Do you think that Havertz might be back by the final? Marino can go into midfield." I don't think Havertz is going to be back for the semi-final. No, I'll be very, very, very surprised if if Havertz is back by the semi-final. I just don't think that there's the timeline and the recovery time. I mean, he could prove me wrong, and it would be amazing to see him back and a big boost. But I think the most likelihood we've got is Havertz being back maybe for the final. And I tell you what, even if Havertz is back, he doesn't start, does he? You're not starting him uh, over Marino right now if he comes back. You just don't. Why on earth would you start? I just don't quite get it. I don't quite get that argument to if he comes back for him to start. I just don't. I don't. It's really uncomfortable sitting in a bed trying to do a podcast. By the way, legs crossed. It's really uncomfortable. I don't have a desk in this room, so it's not like I can do that. Easy says, "Hi Tom, is Jorginho going to be back for the semi-final?" No, I don't think so. I'd be surprised if he was. John says, "You forgot Martin Odegaard." I don't think I did. I think I mentioned in the first half I wasn't impressed with him at all. I thought he was pretty poor, and he grew into the second half. But overall, I wasn't really impressed with Odegaard's performance. It was a frustrating. Certainly, I think, and it was overall, it was a uh, the team were great, and I think I gave him a 7. I think Simon might have given him a 6, but he was probably our worst player, Odegaard, on the day. It's maybe he's just doing things that we don't really appreciate. Maybe his role is just it just bugs me so often when he kind of cuts back or slows things down, or he can play a better pass, or he can be a little bit more progressive. I think he's so scared of kind of making the wrong choice that he ends up making the wrong choice. I don't know what's up with mine. I am Martin's biggest fan. I couldn't speak more positively about him, and I don't buy into the craziness of people saying he should have the captaincy stripped of him. Give your heads a wobble. But there is a good chance next season that if Arsenal were to go into the market and start adding some attacking players, that he's not guaranteed to start every game. He needs to improve. He needs to start making some better choices, and his choices ultimately um, are not being made correctly at the moment. Tom says, "Will playing home first be in our favour?" I mean, we always put so much emphasis on wanting to be the side that plays the second leg at home, but actually, I think that in some weird way that helped us. Having such a lead going into the second leg, I think, is really important. And I think having that night at the Emirates in a couple of weeks' time, that's going to be great. I can't wait to see what we do. I can't wait to see how we achieve it. I can't wait to see what goes down. Um, it's going to be really exciting, that game. The atmosphere again is going to be unbelievable. I can't wait. I cannot wait. It's going to be such a brilliant occasion to be. This is only the third time in Arsenal's history they've reached the Champions League semi-final. The third time. That is such an achievement. So it's taken me 33 minutes. And I think now, after 33 minutes, I can mention our manager. Is that all right? Can I talk about Arteta? Are some of you going to be okay with that? Are we all okay? Can we talk about Arteta for a little bit? It's not a point of arrogance or hubris or I told you so or anything like that. We've not won anything yet. But I just don't get how on earth anybody can't look at Arsenal over these last 5 years and couldn't see this coming. Couldn't see Arsenal moving in this direction. Couldn't see us going towards this goal. Arsenal may or may not win the Champions League this season. We all hoped it would be the Premier League this season, and sadly, circumstances have happened to really affect our ability to do that. But when you have injuries, the Premier League is really hard, but the Champions League still offers you an opportunity because they are such individual games played across those two legs. And even when you miss players, you can set things up tactically. You can kind of work just on a tie rather than, of course, the broader context of a league and having to be consistent every single week after week after week. Champions League offers opportunities. And Arsenal at the moment are really giving it a good go at trying to take this opportunity, despite having no Gabriel, despite having no Havertz, no Jesus, no Calafiori, no Jorginho now. Ben White not fully fit. Saka still having to come off before full time because he's not fully fit. What Arsenal are doing this season, and it still may not yet end in silverware. And if it does end in silverware, it could be one of the greatest achievements ever, only second to the Invincibles. It still shocks me how many people flitter and flip flop between Arteta in, Arteta out, and all the chaotic nature of social media. Of course, we all know anyone with their head screwed on tightly enough can see that Arsenal are in a very, very good place and are under the right management, are under the right coach, are moving in the right direction, are going towards the goals that we are desperate for Arsenal to go towards. Last year was the first time we've reached the Champions League quarter-final for the first time in 14 years. This is the first time we've reached a semi-final for the first time since 2009. If we reach a final, which could happen, it'll be the first time since 2006. And if we win, it'll be the first time that has ever happened. And there's a really good chance that we can do that. We're not underdogs. We are a competitive force in this competition. And as I said before, I think any of the 4 teams that remain can all win it this year. That's exciting. For a neutral point of view, that's exciting. And now Arsenal play a PSG team they've obviously already beaten this season, but they're a different animal now. Several months later, they're improved. They've got Kvaratskhelia, Dembele will be available to them. They are very, very, very dangerous side. But they also have conceded 4 goals against Aston Villa. So who knows what this team could be capable of. I think Arsenal need to win the first tie to 0 and go to Paris with a lead, and then just play the game similarly to kind of the way that we played it in Madrid. But we're just so good defensively. We're so strong at the back. We're so composed, other than that mistake, obviously. But we're so good in those areas that we're very hard to beat. The team I don't really want to face, and I know that means face if we do hypothetically get through to the final, Inter Milan really scare me. Inter Milan really worry me. The reason why Inter Milan really worries me is because I think stylistically they're a bit of a kryptonite to us, I believe. I just think they're a bit anti-Arsenal, Inter Milan, and that worries me. Barcelona are very, very, very good. Very, very good. But I feel as though stylistically Barca and PSG do suit how Arsenal will play. If you thought it was going to be a special night, if you thought the other night was special in the Emirates, though, against Real Madrid, and yes, PSG are not as historic or as iconic a team as Real Madrid, certainly not. But the atmosphere is going to be crazy. The atmosphere is going to be absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, what Arsenal as a whole, where we stand, where we are, it's down to the team, it's down to the manager, it's down to the club, it's down to everything where we've been on. And frankly, if you can't see that still, I don't know what to tell you. Abdul says, "Hey Tom, do you think the PGMOL gives that first penalty? Probably not. No." Nike says, "We see Saka at his best right after his injury. I can't see this with Odegaard. Why do you think he's still struggling? Truly need him against PSG." I don't have an answer. I can't explain it. I can't explain Odegaard's dip. It's incredibly frustrating. He knows it. It's not like he thinks he's having a great season or anything. He knows he's not having the best of seasons for Arsenal this year. He knows it's a problem. Hopefully next season things improve, but we can't afford to wait for players. Arsenal have to continue to evolve, have to continue to move forwards, have to continue to have the best of the best. And if we sign players next season who are performing better than him, he will lose his place. That's just the nature of a big club. So he needs to buck up his ideas and he needs to start performing to a higher standard. Otherwise, things are going to change. But ultimately, he still had a part to play in Arsenal's goal. And I think improved and grew into that second half, which is encouraging. Viraj says, "Who would you have preferred to play PSG?" I would have preferred PSG. I just, again, similarly to Inter Milan, stylistically, I think they're a better fit for us than Villa. It would have been awful to play Unai Emery in another semi-final of a European competition. It would have been terrible. Not because I particularly rate Unai Emery as like this amazing manager that so many do. I think he's a good manager, a very good manager. But he just seems to have Arsenal's number. Villa seem to have Arsenal on a bit of string. I don't like that. we've already played 2 very tough games against them this season. So I would have rather PSG, and we've got PSG. Chris has come in a moment of appreciation for Mika Marino. We already have done, but I'm happy for you to do it again. It was very good. Kwame says, "Did you see Rudiger stamp on Lewis Skelly?" Yeah, it's naughty. That it was naughty. I don't know if he'd been described as a stamp. I just think kind of he knows what he's doing, and he just leaves his foot in of where he's putting it down. He'll make out that he had no choice, but he's very clever, Rudiger, very cunning, and it was naughty, very, very, very naughty. Vivian says Rudiger got away with stamping on MLS. Waza says, I think Odegaard last night, it was nerves as well, feeling that he had a point to prove returning to his former side. Let's scroll up a little bit more. Let's see if I've missed any other questions as well. Probably have done. Suit says, I still think Odegaard will come back to his best, but I honestly feel like the captaincy adds that extra bit of pressure. I don't really don't put that much pressure or extra emphasis, to be honest, on kind of the captaincy. I just don't think it's as big of a thing. I think the biggest thing of it is if you take it away. If you take the captaincy away, I think that absolutely takes things. It takes things away from. It creates more pressure. It creates more pressure for Arsenal. I think if you take the captaincy away, it'd be the wrong choice to make. Spearmint says, Tom was talking about how Arteta gets a lot of hate, but this season isn't Arteta's fault. There was just poor signings these transfer windows. I mean, if you think that Arteta is the reason why Arsenal are signing players in January, again, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you can't ever hear Arteta speak more about the need for signings. And if you really think that Arteta's behind the reason we didn't sign players in January, I don't know. At this point, it's a lost cause, I'm afraid. I'm not going to go around in circles time and time again explaining this situation to people. It's a lost cause. The reason why Arsenal's windows have been poor is in January, sadly, the people that are tasked with getting the deals done didn't get deals done. The market wasn't great, sure, but they had to do business and they haven't. In the summer, Arsenal had ideas about what they wanted. Arteta wanted Benjamin Sesko. The club were unable to get that deal done, and sadly, they couldn't do it. He wanted more. They didn't get more. This summer, there is a real emphasis this summer on wants to back Arteta and to get those signings in. But ultimately, Arteta's primary job is to coach the team. Arteta's primary job is to get those players singing, and whoever he has available, it's his job to progress them. Edu was in charge of the summer. The owners were in charge of the summer. In January, it was on Jason Ato and the executives to bring players in. They didn't. It's not Arteta's job to sign players. It's just not his job. Arteta's job is to get results on the pitch with what is available to him. And unfortunately, this season in the league, he's been incredibly restricted. And despite being incredibly restricted, Arteta still somehow has got this team into second spot. I don't really get how Arsenal are still second, but we are. Yes, our form is really poor, but I still can't believe we sit second spot. The Champions League, though, 5-1 over Real Madrid, 9-3 over PSG, beating PSG, beating some really key sides in this competition already, finishing, of course, third. It's nuts what we're doing this season, really. Everything that's happened, all the context around it, where Arsenal are, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts where we're at and what we're doing. I'm just enjoying the ride. Southport Gooner says, Tom, who would you play at 6? Rice. I think you have to play Rice. I think you probably have to go Rice, Marino, Trossard. I think that's the best way to deal with Partey's absence, unfortunately. Phil Ed says, Tom, do you think Odegaard gets asked to do too much without any proper cover behind him? To the rest, he's our only main creator in the middle of the pitch. I think it's something that needs fixing. He's getting asked to do no more than he usually does, or what he has done previously. So I don't know if it's that. Terence says, Tom, interview after the match, Rice was praising Arteta, the younger players, and the belief they all have in the manager. This idea of Arteta not wanting or improving this team is, I don't. It's almost like people think he didn't want to sign anybody in the summer, or was unable to as a manager. I don't know where people get these opinions from. It's mad, and I don't know who's misinforming you or where you're getting these views from. I don't know who's doing it, but as I always say, screw your head on a bit tighter and wake up and smell the coffee and realise what the reality is. YouTube censors free speech in the chat box. Says, morning, Gooners. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. We will be Champions League winners. I feel it coming our way. Ajmal says, some of the conversation people had with the Kiwior because he had a bad game against Bayern. He's a quality backup. Unfortunately, Arteta doesn't rotate our centre-backs enough, in my opinion. It's difficult, that, isn't it? Because if you've got Saliba and you've got Gabriel, when are you really going to rotate? Well, if you rotate and we concede or we don't win a game, you're going to get battered. So it's very, very difficult. Anson says, Tom, I've lost my voice, but do you know when the tickets come out for that game? I don't, I'm afraid. Sorry. I know the dates are out now, but I don't know when the tickets are out at the moment. Sorry. I'm sure you'll get a notification of when that does come to pass. Right. I'm going to end the show there. Thank you to the over 1,300 of you that are tuning in. Crazy. Thank you so much to you all for listening. Really appreciate you being here. I'm now going to hopefully enjoy a little bit of Madrid before having to catch my flight home. I've still got to do some work today as well. There'll be more thoughts. Check out our lunchtime article. I'll be writing a piece on the experience of last night, of what it all meant, of what it all was. So you can check that out around lunchtime. But enjoy yourselves, people. Enjoy your day. Go and bask in the glory of it all. Rub it into your mates who support other terrible clubs. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy, respectful, and as always, up the Arsenal. Remontada? What remontada?